Marcus Chun wiped the sweat from his forehead as he stirred the massive pot of stew in the galley kitchen of the merchant vessel Stellar Wanderer. The ship groaned around him as it traveled through hyperspace, carrying a cargo of rare minerals and a crew of 12 different alien species to the trading station at Kepler 442b. He had been cooking for alien crews for 3 years now, ever since Earth joined the Galactic Trade Federation. Most humans took jobs in engineering, navigation, or security. But Marcus loved cooking, and someone had to feed the diverse crew. Members who couldn't eat the standard nutrition paste that most ships served. The kitchen door hissed open and Zexai entered. The reptilian saurian stood nearly 8 feet tall, with scales that shifted from green to blue depending on his mood. Currently, they showed the deep purple that meant he was troubled. Human. "Marcus," Zexai said in his clicking voice, "the captain wants to see you on the bridge immediately." Marcus turned off the heat under his stew and followed the security officer through the ship's corridors. Other crew members stopped their work to watch them pass. Clara, the ship's crystalline engineer, chimed softly in what he had learned was their species' way of showing concern. The fuzzy Valdorian twins, Pip and Pop, chittered nervously from their workstation. Captain Vorthak was a massive being from the warrior race known as the Korathi. His forearms moved constantly as he reviewed data on multiple screens. His beetle-like exoskeleton was scarred from countless battles, and his compound eyes reflected the bridge lights like tiny galaxies. "Cook, Marcus," the captain rumbled, his voice like grinding stone. "We have received a priority message from the Federation Council. There has been an incident at the mining colony on Zarian Prime." Marcus felt his stomach drop. Zarian Prime was? Where they were supposed to deliver their cargo of rare Earth elements. "What kind of incident, sir?" The main screen flickered to life, showing a news report. A human reporter stood before burning buildings while explosions lit the sky behind her. "The conflict on Zarian Prime has escalated beyond all expectations. What began as a simple labor dispute between human miners and Korathi overseers has spiraled into system-wide violence. The Korathi hegemony has declared all humans on Zarian Prime to be enemy combatants." Marcus watched in horror as the footage showed Korathi warriors attacking human settlements. Families ran screaming from their homes as plasma bolts turned buildings to ash. The reporter continued, "The Federation Council has been unable to negotiate a ceasefire. The Korathi claim that humans are inferior beings unfit for civilized space and have demanded their immediate expulsion from all Korathi-controlled systems." Captain Vorthak turned off the screen and fixed his compound gaze on Marcus. "Human, you understand the situation. My people and your people are now at war. According to Federation law, I must confine you to quarters for the remainder of this journey." "But Captain," Marcus said, his voice steady despite his racing heart, "I've served on your ship faithfully. I've cooked meals that brought your crew together." "Doesn't that count for anything?" The bridge fell silent. Zexai's scales shifted to a darker purple. Clara's crystalline form stopped its usual gentle humming. Even the Valdorian twins had stopped their constant chittering. Captain Vorthak's massive frame seemed to expand as he considered Marcus's words. "You are correct, human. You have served well, but war changes everything. I cannot risk the safety of my crew for one being, regardless of species." As security officers moved to escort Marcus away, alarms began blaring throughout the ship. Red emergency lights bathed everything in an ominous glow. The ship shuddered violently, throwing everyone to the deck. "Report!" Captain Vorthak roared. Clara's voice sang out in crystalline tones that the ship's translator converted to words. "Captain, we're being pulled out of hyperspace. Unknown vessels are surrounding us." The main screen activated, showing 3 sleek warships bearing the crimson and gold markings of the Korathi military. Their angular hulls bristled with weapons, and their engines glowed like miniature suns. A new voice filled the bridge, transmitted from the lead warship. It spoke in the guttural Korathi language, which the ship's computer translated with mechanical precision. "Merchant vessel Stellar Wanderer. This is War Commander Galthok of the Korathi 3rd Fleet. You are suspected of harboring enemy combatants. Prepare to be boarded and searched." Captain Vorthak activated his communications console. War Commander, this is Captain Vorthak. We are a legitimate merchant vessel operating under Federation charter. We carry only trade goods and crew. Your ship's manifest shows a human aboard, came the cold reply. All humans are now considered enemies of the Korathi hegemony. Surrender the human, and your ship may continue on its way. Marcus felt every eye on the bridge turn to him. In that moment, he understood that his presence had put the entire crew in danger. These weren't just his co-workers anymore. They were his friends, his family. And because of the war between their species, he had become a threat to their safety. I'll go with them, Marcus said quietly. There's no need for anyone else to get hurt. But Captain Vorthak raised one of his 4 hands. War Commander Galthok, the human is under my protection. He is a valued member of my crew. The silence that followed was deafening. Marcus could hear his own heartbeat thundering in his ears. Outside, the Korathi warships moved closer, their weapons beginning to charge with deadly light. Then you have chosen to harbor an enemy? War Commander Galthok's voice carried a note of satisfaction. Your ship and all aboard are now legitimate military targets. You have 1 minute to comply or we will open fire. The countdown appeared on the main screen. 059, 058, 057. Marcus looked around at the crew he had come to love. Zexhai, who always asked for extra portions of his spiced vegetable soup. Tlara, whose crystalline form would sing softly when she tasted his fusion noodles. The Valdorian twins, who had taught him their traditional recipes in exchange for Earth comfort food. Captain Vorthak himself, who had given a human cook a chance when no one else would. Now they might all die because of him. The timer continued its relentless countdown. 045, 044, 043, Marcus Chun, just a human cook armed with nothing but kitchen knives and recipes, made a decision that would change the course of the war. He walked to the communications console and placed his hand on the activation switch. War Commander, he said, his voice carrying across space to the waiting warships. This is Marcus Chun. I have something to say. The countdown timer froze at 031 as War Commander Galthok's voice filled the bridge. Speak quickly, human. Your words will not save you. Marcus took a deep breath, feeling the weight of every eye upon him. War Commander, before you execute me, I want to tell you about my last meal. The bridge crew exchanged confused glances. Captain Vorthak's compound eyes focused intently on Marcus, while Zexhia's scales shifted to the bright yellow of bewilderment. Your last meal? Galthok's voice carried a note of cruel amusement. How pathetically human. Very well, speak. Marcus closed his eyes for a moment, remembering. 3 days ago, I prepared a feast for Captain Vorthak's clutch-hatching celebration. Korathi tradition calls for the meal of 7 flames, representing the 7 trials of warriorhood. I spent weeks researching your culture's culinary traditions. On the main screen, he could see the lead warship's weapons powering down slightly. Marcus continued, his voice growing stronger. I learned that the first flame represents courage, so I prepared fire root soup using genuine Korathi spices that burn like molten metal. For the second flame of strength, I crafted protein cakes using muscle meat from the great beasts of Korath Prime, seasoned with salt from the crystal seas. Captain Vorthak's massive frame trembled slightly. Marcus had never seen the warrior show emotion before, but something was changing in the captain's posture. The third flame signifies wisdom, Marcus continued. I made traditional thinking bread, baked with herbs that Korathi elders consumed during their meditation rituals. The fourth flame of honor required me to prepare victory wine, fermented according to ancient recipes passed down through warrior bloodlines. The silence from the warship stretched long enough that Marcus wondered if his transmission was still working. Then Galthok's voice returned, quieter now, almost uncertain. How does a human know these things? Because I wanted to honor my captain and my crewmates, Marcus replied. The fifth flame represents loyalty, so I prepared bonding stew, the same meal that Korathi warriors share before battle to show their unity. The sixth flame signifies sacrifice, honored with fasting cakes that remind us what we give up for others. Marcus opened his eyes and looked directly at Captain Vorthak. And the seventh flame, War Commander, represents hope. For that I prepared something new. I took human chocolate and combined it with Korathi honey crystals, creating a desert that had never existed before. Two species, different in every way, coming together to make something beautiful. The bridge was completely silent now except for the soft hum of ship systems. Even Clara's constant crystalline singing had stopped. When Captain Vorthak tasted that final dish, Marcus said, his voice carrying across space, he told me something I will never forget. He said that a meal prepared with such care and understanding could only come from a heart that truly knew honor. He said that any being capable of such respect for another's culture was worthy of the title warrior, regardless of their species. On the screen, the Korathi warships hung motionless in space. Minutes passed before Galthok's voice returned, and when it did, it carried a weight that hadn't been there before. "Captain Vorthak," the war commander said, "is what this human says true?" Captain Vorthak stepped forward, all four of his arms spread wide in the Korathi gesture of absolute truth. "By the seven flames of my ancestors, war commander, every word is true. This human has shown me greater understanding of our ways than warriors I have known for decades." The pause stretched so long that Marcus began to think the transmission had been cut. Finally, Galthok spoke again. "Human Marcus Chun, you speak of honor and tradition, yet your species has declared war upon mine." "With respect, war commander," Marcus said, "I didn't declare war on anyone. I'm just a cook trying to feed my crew family. But if my people have hurt yours, then I understand your anger. I've seen what anger does. It burns everything, even the things we love." Marcus walked to his workstation and picked up a small container. "War Commander, I carry spices from a dozen worlds. Earth cinnamon, Valdorian moon pepper, crystalline harmony herbs, Saurian heat seeds, and yes, genuine Korathi fire root. In my kitchen, these different spices don't fight each other. They work together to create flavors that none could achieve alone." He held up the container for the screen to see. "This is War Spice Blend. I created it myself, combining elements from every species on this ship. It's hot enough to burn a human tongue, sweet enough to please a Valdorian, complex enough to interest a crystalline, and honorable enough to serve to a Korathi warrior." Galthok's voice came through the speakers, quieter now. "What is your point, human?" "My point is that if spices can work together, maybe people can too. Maybe this war doesn't have to destroy everything we've built together in the Federation." The main screen suddenly shifted to show the interior of the Korathi command ship. War Commander Galthok was revealed as a massive Korathi, even larger than Captain Vorthak, with scars covering his exoskeleton and medals of honor across his chest. His compound eyes stared directly at Marcus through the screen. "Human," Galthok said slowly. "My eldest son was killed in the mining riots on Zarian Prime. A human explosive device destroyed his transport. I have come to hate your entire species for that loss." Marcus felt his heart sink. "I'm sorry for your loss, War Commander. No parent should have to bury their child. Yet you stand there, knowing I could kill you with a word and speak to me of honor and understanding." Why? Marcus thought of his own parents back on Earth, probably watching the news about the war with growing fear. "Because hate is easy, War Commander. Any fool can hate. But cooking, real cooking, requires you to understand what you're working with. You have to respect each ingredient, learn its nature, and find ways to bring out its best qualities." He gestured to the crew around him. "This crew is like a complex recipe. Captain Vorthak provides the strong base like good bone broth. Clara adds the delicate notes like carefully chosen herbs. Zexhai brings the heat and spice. The Valdorian twins add sweetness and surprise, and me? I'm just the one who tries to bring it all together into something nourishing." Galthok studied him for a long moment. "And what would you do, human cook, if I told you that I still intend to kill you for the crimes of your species?" Marcus straightened his shoulders and looked the war commander directly in the eye. "Then I would ask for one final request. Let me prepare a meal for you and your crew before I die. The traditional last honor feast, prepared according to Korathi custom. If my cooking is found wanting, then I accept my fate. But if I can prepare a meal that honors your son's memory and your warrior tradition, then perhaps you might consider that not all humans are your enemies. The bridge fell silent again. Captain Vorthak's forearms spread wide in amazement. Zekhi's scales had shifted to the pure white of shock. Even the hardened Korathi war commander seemed taken aback by Marcus's proposal. "You would cook for me?" Galthok asked slowly. "For the warriors who came here to kill you." "Food is meant to be shared," Marcus replied simply. "And sometimes the best way to honor the dead is to find a way for the living to understand each other." War Commander Galthok's massive form remained motionless on the screen for what felt like an eternity. The Korathi warships hung in space around the Stellar Wanderer, their weapons still charged but no longer targeting. Finally, the War Commander spoke. "Human Marcus Chun, your proposal intrigues me. But know this, the last honor feast is sacred to my people. It is prepared only for fallen warriors and only by those who knew them in life. To prepare such a meal without proper knowledge would be considered the gravest insult." Marcus nodded solemnly. "Then teach me, War Commander. Tell me about your son. Help me understand what would honor his memory." The silence stretched again. Captain Vorthak moved closer to Marcus, all four arms raised in a gesture of protection. "War Commander," the captain said, "I will vouch for this human skill and honor. He has never prepared a meal without first understanding its meaning." Galthok's compound eyes shifted between Marcus and Captain Vorthak. "Very well. But this meal will be prepared aboard my flagship, under guard. If you attempt any treachery, human, your death will be neither quick nor honorable." 2 hours later, Marcus found himself in the galley of the Korathi warship Vengeance of Korath. The kitchen was 3 times the size of his galley on the Stellar Wanderer, built to feed a crew of over 300 warriors. The equipment was unfamiliar but functional, and the Korathi had provided ingredients that Marcus had only read about in cultural texts. War Commander Galthok stood nearby, flanked by 2 massive guards. The war commander had removed his battle armor, revealing ritual scars across his exoskeleton that told the story of a lifetime of combat. His voice was quieter now, almost gentle as he began to speak. "My son's name was Kelthik. He was young for a Korathi, only 73 cycles old. He volunteered for the mining assignment to prove himself worthy of warrior status." Galthok's compound eyes dimmed slightly. He was eager, perhaps too eager. He wanted to show that he could work alongside other species in peace. Marcus began sorting through the ingredients as he listened. True Korathi fire root still glowing with internal heat. Bone meal from the great hunters of their homeworld. Fermented grain that had been aged in caves for decades. Each ingredient was valuable beyond measure, representing not just rare flavors but cultural significance spanning millennia. What was his favorite food? Marcus asked as he began preparing his workspace. Galthok's eyes brightened slightly. Kelthik loved heat cakes. Simple food, really, made with fire root and sweet grain. Our equivalent of what you humans call comfort food. His mother used to make them for him when he was troubled. The war commander's voice cracked almost imperceptibly. She died in the plague wars before he reached maturity. I raised him alone. Marcus nodded, beginning to understand. The last honor feast wasn't just about honoring the dead. It was about telling their story through food. What did he dream of becoming? He wanted to be a bridge builder. Not literally, but culturally. He believed that the different species in the Federation could learn to truly understand each other, not just coexist. Galthok watched Marcus begin to heat the massive cooking surfaces. He was fascinated by other cultures, especially human ingenuity and creativity. He said humans had a gift for making something from nothing. As Marcus worked, he began to see the meal taking shape in his mind. Not just a traditional Korathi feast, but something that would honor Kelthik's dreams as well as his memory. He started with the foundation, a rich bone broth that would simmer for hours, building layers of flavor that represented the slow growth of understanding between species. War Commander, may I ask what happened on Zarian Prime? The real story, not what the news reports said? Galthok was quiet for a long moment, watching Marcus work with ingredients that could kill a human if mishandled. The mining operation was a joint venture. Humans provided the technology, Korathi provided the workforce. For months, it worked well. Kelthuk wrote to me about the friendships he was forming, the innovations they were creating together. Marcus added fire root to the broth, carefully controlling the amount. Too much would overpower everything else. Too little would dishonor the Korathi tradition of strength through adversity. Then the separatists came, Galthok continued, his voice hardening. Humans who believed that other species were inferior, that humanity should dominate the galaxy. They planted explosives throughout the mining complex, intending to blame the Korathi for the destruction. They wanted to start a war that would justify human expansion. Marcus paused in his stirring. And your son? Kelthuk discovered the plot. He was trying to defuse one of the devices when it exploded. His last transmission was a warning to both human and Korathi workers to evacuate. Galthok's compound eyes dimmed again. The separatists succeeded in starting their war, but not in the way they intended. My people blamed all humans for the attack. Your people blamed all Korathi for the retaliation. The galley filled with the aroma of the simmering broth as Marcus processed this information. He began preparing the heat cakes that Kelthuk had loved. But he modified the recipe slightly, adding a touch of human vanilla extract to sweeten the fire root's burn. It was a small gesture, but one that represented the cultural bridge that Kelthuk had dreamed of building. War Commander, what if we could find a way to tell the real story? What if people knew that your son died trying to prevent this war? Words are easily dismissed in wartime, Galthok replied. Each side hears only what confirms their anger. Marcus nodded, shaping the heat cakes with practiced hands. But food speaks a different language. It bypasses the mind and goes straight to the heart. When someone tastes a meal prepared with love and understanding, they can't ignore the care that went into it. As the hours passed, Marcus prepared course after course of the last honor feast. Each dish told part of Kelthuk's story, his youth represented by sweet grain porridge. His courage shone in spiced meat that burned and soothed in equal measure. His hope for the future captured in fusion bread that combined techniques from multiple worlds. Other Korathi warriors began to gather in the galley, drawn by the aromas. Marcus noticed that many were young, probably close to Kelthuk's age when he died. Their compound eyes tracked his every movement with fascination rather than hostility. I have never seen a human work with Korathi ingredients, one of them said. You handle the fire root as if you were born to it. Respect, Marcus replied simply, not looking up from his work. Every ingredient teaches you how to use it if you listen carefully enough. As the feast neared completion, War Commander Galthok approached the cooking station. Human, I must ask you something. Why risk your life for this? Your ship could have simply surrendered you to save themselves. Marcus looked up from the final dish, the memorial cake that would conclude the feast. It was a delicate construction that balanced sweetness and heat, tradition and innovation, representing the balance that Kelthuk had sought between species. Because your son died trying to build bridges, Marcus said. If I ran away now, his death would mean nothing. But if we can find understanding through this meal, then maybe his sacrifice can still save lives. Galthok stared at him for a long moment. You speak as if you knew him. In a way, I did. Marcus carefully placed the final decorative element on the memorial cake. Small flame made from crystallized fire root that would burn safely throughout the meal. Every young person who dreams of making the galaxy a better place is the same person, regardless of species. Your son and I would have been friends. The war commander's massive frame seemed to settle, some tension leaving his scarred exoskeleton. Perhaps. He would have enjoyed this conversation. He paused, watching the flame flicker atop the memorial cake. The feast is ready? Marcus nodded. It is, War Commander. Prepared in honor of Kelthuk bridge builder and warrior, who died trying to prevent the very war we're fighting now. As the word spread throughout the ship, warriors began gathering in the great hall where the feast would be served. Marcus had prepared enough food for the entire crew, following Korathi tradition that the last honor feast must be shared by all who would remember the fallen. The question now was whether this meal could accomplish what diplomats and politicians had failed to achieve, finding a path toward peace in the midst of war. The great hall fell into chaos as the news spread through the assembled warriors. Drinking horns clattered to tables as Korathi soldiers prepared to rush to battle stations. The celebration that had just moments before celebrated unity now threatened to dissolve into the same cycle of violence that had started the war. Marcus stood frozen beside the memorial cake, watching 300 warriors transform from dinner guests into a war party in seconds. Their scales shifted to the deep red of battle rage, and their compound eyes glowed with deadly purpose. The feast that was supposed to honor Kelthak's dream of peace had become the backdrop for escalating conflict. War Commander Galthok raised all 4 arms, and the hall gradually quieted. Warriors maintained discipline. We will respond to this threat, but we will not dishonor Kelthak's memory by acting in haste. He turned to his communications officer. Show me the tactical display. A holographic projection filled the center of the hall, showing the sector map with red markers indicating human fleet movements. Marcus's heart sank as he saw the scope of the assault. Dozens of human warships were converging on 3 different Korathi colony worlds, their formation suggesting a coordinated strike designed to force a quick surrender. War Commander, the communications officer continued, the human admiral leading. The assault is broadcasting a message on all frequencies. He's demanding that we surrender all Korathi military assets and submit to human occupation forces, or he'll begin orbital bombardment of civilian targets. The temperature in the hall seemed to drop several degrees. Even through the translation systems, Marcus could feel the cold fury radiating from the assembled warriors. These weren't just military targets being threatened. They were talking about attacking families, children, the innocent civilians that every warrior's code demanded they protect. Young Zakmar stood up, his scales now burning crimson with rage. War Commander, we cannot allow this insult to stand. The humans threaten our families while pretending to offer peace. Other warriors echoed his sentiment, their voices rising in anger. Marcus realized that everything he had accomplished during the feast was about to be destroyed by the actions of his own species' extremists. The bridges he had built were crumbling before his eyes. Wait, Marcus called out, his voice somehow carrying over the growing tumult. War Commander, may I hear the human admiral's message? Galthok looked at him with surprise. Why, human? So you can celebrate your people's victory? No, Marcus said firmly. Because something doesn't make sense. Think about the timing. How did the human fleet know exactly when to attack? How did they coordinate this assault to happen right as we were learning to understand each other? The war commander's compound eyes focused on Marcus with laser intensity. Explain. Marcus stepped closer to the holographic display, studying the fleet formations. Look at the attack pattern. These ships aren't from Earth's regular military. The formations are wrong, the approach vectors are too aggressive. This looks like the same kind of tactics the Separatists used on Zarian Prime. Play the message, Galthok commanded. The hologram shifted to show a human admiral in an unfamiliar uniform. His face was hard, scarred, and his eyes held the cold fanaticism that Marcus had learned to recognize in extremist groups. When he spoke, his words carried the rhetoric of racial superiority that had started this war. Attention, alien filth, the Admiral's recorded voice echoed through the hall. I am Admiral Harrison Thorne of the Human Purity Fleet. Your species is a cancer upon the galaxy, and humanity will no longer tolerate your existence. Surrender now, and we may permit your warriors to die with honor. Resist, and we will exterminate every last one of your kind, starting with your helpless civilians. Marcus felt sick to his stomach. This wasn't the voice of Earth's legitimate government or military. This was the same poisonous hatred that had killed Kelthak, now backed by stolen or hijacked warships and turned into a weapon of genocide. War Commander, Marcus said urgently, this isn't an official human military operation. Admiral Thorn is a separatist leader who was supposed to be in prison. These ships must be either stolen or crewed by other extremists. My government didn't authorize this attack. Zakmer snarled, his scales blazing with anger. More lies! How convenient that your people attack us while their cook speaks of peace. But War Commander Galthok held up one massive hand. Quiet, Zakmer. Marcus Chun, if what you say is true, then where is your legitimate government? Where are the voices of your people calling for peace? Marcus closed his eyes, thinking desperately. Then inspiration struck. Captain Vorthak, may I use your ship's communication array? I need to contact someone on Earth. Captain Vorthak stepped forward. Human Marcus, what are you thinking? I'm thinking that food isn't the only thing that gets better when you combine ingredients, Marcus replied. War Commander, give me 10 minutes. Let me try to contact Earth's actual government. If I can't prove that this attack is unauthorized, then you can do whatever you think is necessary. The silence in the hall was deafening. 300 Korathi. Warriors waited for their leader's decision while human warships approached their homeworlds with weapons charged. The future of two species hung in the balance. 10 minutes, Galthok said finally. No more. Minutes later, Marcus found himself on the bridge of the Stellar Wanderer, frantically working the communication console while War Commander Galthok and Captain Vorthak watched. The transmission lag to Earth would eat up precious time, but he had to try. Earth Defense Command, this is Marcus Chun aboard the merchant vessel Stellar Wanderer. I need to speak with General Patricia Santos immediately. Tell her it's about the Korathi situation and Admiral Thorn. The response came back faster than Marcus had dared hope. General Santos appeared on the screen, her weathered face showing exhaustion and stress. Behind her, Marcus could see the chaos of Earth's military command center, with officers rushing between workstations and emergency lights flashing. Marcus Chun, she said with surprise. What are you doing on an open channel? And why are you with the Korathi military? General, there's no time to explain everything. Admiral Thorn has launched an attack on Korathi civilian targets using ships flying under human flags. Is this an authorized operation? General Santos's face darkened. Absolutely not. Thorn escaped from military prison 3 weeks ago, along with several hundred separatist sympathizers. We've been hunting for him ever since. Those ships were stolen from our reserve fleet. War Commander Galthok stepped into view of the transmission. General Santos, I am War Commander Galthok of the Korathi Third Fleet. Your Admiral Thorn threatens to destroy our colonies if we do not surrender. What is your government's position? General Santos straightened. War Commander, the Earth Federation officially condemns Admiral Thorn's actions. He does not speak for humanity any more than your separatist extremists speak for all Korathi. We've been trying to find a way to contact your leadership to propose a ceasefire. A ceasefire? Galthok's compound eyes widened. While your ships attack our worlds? Not our ships, General Santos corrected firmly. Stolen ships, crewed by criminals and extremists. War Commander, I'm transmitting the authentication codes for our legitimate military vessels. You'll see that none of Thorn's ships carry valid Earth defense authorization. Marcus watched the data stream across the console. The verification was undeniable. Admiral, Thorn's fleet was operating without any official backing from Earth's government. They were pirates and terrorists hiding behind the flag of humanity. War Commander, Marcus said urgently, this proves what I've been trying to tell you. The same extremists who killed your son are now trying to destroy any chance of peace between our peoples. They benefit from this war. They needed to justify their hatred. Galthok studied the authentication data, his massive frame perfectly still. Finally he spoke. General Santos, if what you say is true, then we face a common enemy. What do you propose? A joint operation, she replied immediately. My fleet and yours working together to stop Thorn before he can carry out his threats? We can end this war by showing our people that we're willing to fight together against the real enemies of peace. The idea hung in the air like the aroma of a perfectly prepared meal, unexpected, challenging, but somehow exactly right. Marcus held his breath as he watched two military leaders from warring species consider the possibility of cooperation. "There is wisdom in this proposal," Galthok said slowly. "But my warriors will need proof that humans can be trusted in battle. They will need to see that your people are truly committed to peace." General Santos nodded. "What kind of proof, War Commander?" Galthok turned to Marcus, his compound eyes reflecting the light of the bridge displays. "Human Marcus Chun, you have shown us that understanding between species is possible. Now show us that humans can fight alongside Korathi for something greater than conquest. Will you coordinate this joint operation?" Marcus felt his knees. The great hall of the Vengeance of Korath had been transformed. Long tables stretched across the space, each set with traditional Korathi dining implements and decorated with burning flame bowls that cast dancing shadows on the walls. 300 Korathi warriors filled the benches, their conversations a low rumble of clicking voices and shifting exoskeletons. Marcus stood at the head table beside War Commander Galthok, feeling smaller than he ever had in his life. The warriors watched him with curious compound eyes, their attitudes ranging from suspicious to openly hostile. These were battle-hardened soldiers who had lost friends and comrades to human weapons. Many bore fresh scars from recent conflicts. Captain Vorthok and several crew members from the Stellar Wanderer had been permitted to attend, standing near the rear of the hall. Marcus caught sight of Zexias' reassuring blue scales and Clara-S' softly chiming crystal form, reminders that not everyone in the galaxy had chosen sides in this war. War Commander Galthok raised one of his four massive arms, and the hall fell silent. "Warriors of Korath," he began, his voice carrying easily through the space, "we gather tonight for the last honor feast of my son, Kelthik of the Second Brood, who fell in service to his people." The warriors responded with a traditional war chant, their voices creating a harmonic rumble that Marcus felt in his bones. As the chant faded, Galthok continued. "This feast has been prepared by Marcus Chun, a human who claims to understand our ways. Some of you may question this choice, but I remind you of our oldest law. Honor may be found in the most unexpected places, and wisdom often comes from those we least expect to teach us." A younger warrior near the front stood up, his scales showing the bright orange of anger. "War Commander, with respect, how can we trust food prepared by our enemies? This human's people killed Kelthik. They killed my clutch brother Harntal on Rigel Station. They—" "Sit down, Zakmur," Galthok commanded, but his voice was gentle. "Your anger honors your fallen brother. But answer me this. Who benefits if this war continues?" Marcus stepped forward slightly. "May I speak, War Commander?" Galthok nodded, and Marcus turned to face the assembled warriors. His voice was steady despite his racing heart. "Zakmur, you're right to question me. I am human, and humans killed your brother. But I want you to know something about the humans who started this war." The hall was completely silent now. Marcus could hear the flame bowls crackling and the distant hum of the ship's engines. "The separatists who bombed Zarian Prime don't represent my people any more than they represent yours. They're cowards who hide behind politics and let others do their fighting. They've never shared a meal with a Korathi warrior. They've never learned your languages or studied your culture. They fear what they don't understand, and they want everyone else to fear it too." Marcus gestured toward the tables laden with food. "Every dish I prepared tonight required me to understand something about your people. The fire root soup demanded that I learn about Korathi concepts of courage. The bonding stew taught me about your loyalty to your warrior brothers. The memorial cake forced me to understand how you honor your dead." He paused, looking directly at Zakmur. "The humans who killed your brother never bothered to learn any of that. They saw only alien where I see people. That's the difference between us." Zakmur's orange scales slowly shifted toward the deep blue of contemplation. "You speak well, human. But words are easy. Let us see if your cooking matches your speeches." At Galthok's signal, Marcus began serving the feast. The first course was the traditional bone broth, served with small ceremonial bowls that each warrior would drink in honor of fallen comrades. Marcus had prepared it according to ancient recipes, but he'd added a subtle touch. human herbs that enhanced the Korathi spices without overwhelming them. As the warriors tasted the broth, Marcus watched their reactions carefully. The initial suspicion gave way to surprise, then to thoughtful appreciation. The familiar flavors of their homeworld combined with something new, something that spoke of care and attention to detail. "This is remarkable," one of the older warriors said. "It tastes like home, but also like something more." The second course was the fire root soup, representing courage in the face of adversity. Marcus had spent hours balancing the heat levels, creating a dish that would challenge even Korathi palates without causing actual harm. As the warriors consumed it, he saw their respect growing. This was no simple human attempting to copy their cuisine. This was a craftsman who understood the deeper meanings behind each recipe. When the heat cakes arrived, Kelthuk's favorite food, the hall fell completely silent. War Commander Galthok took the first bite, his compound eyes closing as he savored the flavors. When he opened them again, they gleamed with moisture. "Exactly as his mother made them," he said softly, "but sweeter somehow, as if touched by hope." As the feast continued, something remarkable began to happen. The barriers between the warriors started to break down. They began sharing stories of fallen comrades, comparing the flavors of each dish to memories of home and family. Marcus moved through the hall, explaining the preparation of each course, answering questions about human cooking techniques and listening to tales of Korathi culinary traditions. Young Zakmur approached him during the serving of the bonding stew. "Human Marcus," he said, his scales now showing the green of curiosity. "This stew reminds me of the last meal I shared with my clutch brother before he shipped out to Rigel Station. How did you know to prepare it this way?" Marcus ladled another portion into Zakmur's bowl. "Because loss tastes the same in every language, Zakmur. When we miss someone, we want to remember the good times, the moments that made us feel connected. Food is memory made tangible." An older warrior named Felgath, whose exoskeleton bore the scars of decades of combat, stood and raised his drinking horn. "Human Marcus," he called out, his voice carrying across the hall, "I fought in the Centauri. Rebellion, the vegan border wars, and the siege of Alpha Centauri. In all that time, no enemy has ever prepared food for me with such understanding of our ways. You honor not just Kelthuk, but all our fallen." Other warriors began standing, raising their drinking horns in agreement. The gesture spread through the hall like wildfire until every Korathi was on their feet, honoring the human cook who had somehow captured the essence of their culture in his cuisine. But Marcus wasn't finished. The final course, the memorial cake, remained to be served. This was the most dangerous moment of the entire evening. The memorial cake was sacred to the Korathi, representing not just the individual being honored, but their hopes and dreams for the future. If Marcus had misunderstood anything about Kelthuk or his aspirations, the warriors would consider it an unforgivable insult. War Commander Galthok stood and addressed the hall once more. "Warriors, the final course honors my son's greatest dream, the hope that different species might learn to understand and respect each other. He believed that diversity made us stronger, that each species brought unique gifts to the galaxy." Marcus approached the memorial cake, its crystallized fire root flame still burning brightly atop the delicate construction. The cake itself was a work of art, layered with ingredients from multiple worlds and decorated with symbols representing hope, courage, and unity. "War Commander," Marcus said, offering Galthok the ceremonial knife, "would you like to make the first cut?" Galthok shook his massive head. "No, human. You prepared this feast in honor of my son's memory. You should have the honor of serving his memorial cake." As Marcus cut into the cake, the entire hall held its breath. The interior revealed layers of different colors and textures, each representing a different aspect of Kelthuk's dreams. Human chocolate mixed with Korathi honey crystals. Valdorian moon spices blended with crystalline harmony herbs. Saurian heat seeds balanced by earth vanilla. It was a perfect metaphor for the young Korathi's vision of interspecies cooperation. The first taste brought gasps of amazement from the assembled warriors. The flavors worked together in ways that none of them had ever experienced, creating something entirely new while still honoring their traditions. It was exactly what Celtic had dreamed of: unity without uniformity, cooperation without compromise of individual identity. War Commander Galthok stood slowly, his massive frame trembling with emotion. "Warriors," he said, his voice thick with feeling, "this human has shown us something important tonight. He has proven that understanding between species is not only possible, but necessary. My son died believing in that vision, and now I see that his death was not in vain." The war commander turned to face Marcus directly. "Human Marcus Chun, you came aboard my ship as a prisoner? You leave as something far more valuable, a teacher, a bridge builder, and a friend to the Korathi people." But even as the warriors cheered their approval, alarms began blaring throughout the ship. The celebration was interrupted by the urgent voice of the ship's communications officer. "War Commander, priority transmission from Korathi High Command. The human fleet." 6 hours later, Marcus found himself in the most unlikely position of his life, standing on the bridge of a Korathi battleship, coordinating a joint fleet operation between two species that had been at war just hours before. The combined task. Force moved through hyperspace toward the Korathi colony of New Korath, where Admiral Thorne's separatist fleet had begun its assault. The Bridge of the Vengeance of Korath buzzed with activity as human and Korathi officers worked side by side for the first time in months. General Santos had transferred her command to a fast cruiser that now flew in formation with Galthok's fleet, and her tactical officers were sharing real-time intelligence with their Korathian counterparts. "Transition to normal space in 30 seconds, announced the Korathi navigation officer. "All ships report ready for combat." Marcus watched the countdown timer with a mixture of fear and determination. He had no business being here in the middle of a space battle, but somehow his presence seemed to calm the tensions between the two crews. Human officers would look to him when they needed clarification on Korathi battle protocols, while Korathi warriors sought his advice on human tactical thinking. 15 seconds to transition," the navigator called out. War Commander Galthok stood at his command station, all four arms working different controls simultaneously. "All ships, remember, our target is Admiral Thorne's force. Any ship that surrenders will be accepted. We fight to stop a war, not to win one." The stars snapped back into normal space around them, revealing the horror that Admiral Thorne had unleashed. New Korath hung before them like a jewel wreathed in fire, its orbital stations burning from plasma bombardment. Escape pods fled the planet's surface while Thorne's ships maintained their attack positions, systematically destroying everything that could offer resistance. "My God," General Santos's voice came through the communication link. "He's targeting civilian infrastructure. Schools, hospitals, agricultural centers." Marcus felt bile rise in his throat as he watched the destruction. This wasn't warfare. It was genocide disguised as military action. Thorne's fleet had 12 heavy cruisers and dozens of support vessels, all of them firing on defenseless targets while broadcasting demands for unconditional surrender. "War Commander," the communications officer announced, "Admiral Thorne is hailing us." "On screen," Galthok commanded. Admiral Thorne appeared on the main display, his scarred face twisted with fanatical rage. Behind him, Marcus could see the bridge of his flagship, crewed entirely by humans wearing the black uniforms of the separatist movement. "Well, well," Thorne sneered. "The alien lover Galthok arrives just in time to watch his precious colonies burn. And what's this? Human ships flying alongside the monsters?" I should have expected Santos to betray her own species. General Santos's image appeared in a split screen. "Harrison, you're under arrest for theft of military vessels, mutiny, and crimes against sentient beings. Stand down immediately and we'll guarantee safe passage for any of your crew who surrender." Thorne laughed, a sound devoid of humanity. "Surrender? To alien sympathizers? I'd rather burn the galaxy than see it ruled by non-human filth." His eyes focused on Marcus, who was visible in the background of the Korathi bridge. "And you brought our little pet cook along to watch. How touching." "Admiral Thorne," Marcus said, stepping forward despite his fear, "you don't have to do this. The war can end here, today. All you have to do is stop firing on innocent people." "Innocent?" Thorn's face contorted with rage. There are no innocent aliens, Cook. Every one of them is a threat to human supremacy. Every one of them needs to be eliminated so that humanity can claim its rightful place as the galaxy's master race. War Commander Galthok moved to stand beside Marcus, his massive frame radiating controlled fury. Admiral Thorn, you speak of supremacy while hiding behind stolen ships and attacking civilians. Where is the honor in that? Where is the strength you claim to represent? I don't need honor from monsters, Thorn spat. I have something better, the will to do what needs to be done. He turned to his crew. All ships, target the combined fleet. Show these traitors what happens to humans who side with aliens. The transmission cut off, and immediately the tactical displays lit up with incoming weapons fire. Thorn's fleet had turned away from the planet and was moving to engage, their weapons charging with deadly light. Evasive maneuvers, Galthok roared. All ships, return fire. Protect the evacuation transports. The space around New Korath erupted into chaos. Plasma bolts and missile salvos crisscrossed the void while both fleets maneuvered for advantage. Marcus gripped a support rail as the vengeance of Korath shuddered under enemy fire, its shields flaring with each impact. On the tactical display, he could see the battle developing. The combined human Korathi fleet had superior numbers, but Thorn's ships were well-armed and positioned to use the planet's gravity well as a defensive advantage. Worse, every moment the battle continued meant more civilian deaths on the surface below. War Commander, Marcus called out over the noise of combat. We need to end this quickly. Can your ships coordinate with General Santos's force for a pincer? Movement? Galthok's compound eyes focused on the tactical display. Yes, but it would require perfect timing. Human and Korathi ships would have to trust each other completely. Then let's cook up something special, Marcus said with grim determination. He activated the fleet communication channel. General Santos, this is Marcus. Can your ships execute a delta formation on my mark? Marcus, you're not qualified to, she began, but War Commander Galthok interrupted. General, trust him. He has shown remarkable understanding of how different elements work together. For a moment, the only sounds on the bridge were weapons fire and the hum of ship systems. Then General Santos's voice came back, steady and sure. All human vessels, prepare for Delta formation on Marcus Chun's command. Marcus studied the tactical display, watching the flow of battle like a complex recipe coming together. Thorn's ships were overconfident, pressing their attack without maintaining proper formation. If the combined fleet could coordinate their assault at just the right moment. Now, Marcus called out. General Santos, bring your ships around from starboard. War Commander, hit them from below while they're focused on the human fleet. The combined fleet moved like a well-rehearsed dance. Human ships swept in from the right, while Korathi vessels rose from beneath Thorn's formation, catching the Separatists in a devastating crossfire. Several of Thorn's smaller ships exploded immediately, their stolen armor no match for coordinated military-grade weaponry. Admiral Thorn is trying to escape, the tactical officer announced. His flagship is breaking away from the main force. Don't let him reach hyperspace, General Santos ordered. That madman will just find another target. The chase that followed stretched across the outer system, with Thorn's flagship Human Destiny racing toward the hyperspace jump point while the combined fleet pursued. Marcus watched the tactical display with growing concern as the range increased. We're not going to catch him, he said. He's got too much of a head start. But War Commander Galthok's mandibles clicked with satisfaction. Perhaps. But Admiral Thorn has made one critical error. What's that? He assumes that only his ships carry human technology. Galthok activated a secure channel. Captain Vorthak, are you in position? The familiar voice of Marcus's original captain came through clearly. Yes, War Commander. The Stellar Wanderer is waiting at the jump point, powered down and running silent. Marcus stared at the tactical display in amazement. While the main battle had raged around New Korath, the humble merchant vessel had slipped away and positioned itself directly in Thorn's escape route. The Stellar Wanderer couldn't fight a battleship, but it didn't need to. All it had to do was block the hyperspace jump for a few crucial minutes. Admiral Thorne, Captain Vorthak's voice echoed across the communication channels. This is Captain Vorthak of the merchant vessel Stellar Wanderer. You are ordered to surrender immediately. Thorne's response was predictable. Get out of my way, alien scum, or I'll blow you into atoms. I think not, Captain Vorthak replied calmly. Marcus Chun taught me something about humans that you clearly never learned. They are capable of great courage when they fight for something greater than themselves. The human destiny opened fire on the Stellar Wanderer, but Captain Vorthak was ready. The merchant vessel's shields, reinforced with Korathi military hardware, absorbed the assault while the combined fleet closed the distance. Thorne's flagship was trapped, surrounded by the very cooperation he had tried to destroy. This is General Santos to Admiral Thorne. You are surrounded and outgunned. Surrender now, and I guarantee you'll receive a fair trial. For a long moment there was silence. Then Thorne's voice came through, defeated but still venomous. You think you've won? This is just the beginning. There are others who believe in human superiority. They'll continue the fight even if I fall.